Hello, welcome to part 2 of the Simple Interface tutorial. So in the last tutorial we imported a layered Photoshop document and distributed it to layers in Flash. We put in a video component from the components panel and then piped a video into it and put that in a movie clip. Now, to save a bit of time, I've made a second movie clip which is blank here in the library that you can see. And I've also extended the timeline over here just to allow that first video to play. So video 1 keyframe ends around 600 frames. And then I've started a new part of the timeline for the second video to start playing. So here you can see an extension and the timeline runs all the way to 1200 odd frames. Now at this point the content for the TV and the buttons, I've also put some buttons in by the way, which I'll show you in a minute. So the content for the TV and the buttons isn't visible, and that's because I've extended the timeline for video 2. Here you can see, although it's blank, I've put a keyframe in here, but I haven't done so for the other layers. And I just wanted to show you what to do just so that you knew. So to extend a timeline, I just have to click in a frame and then shift click all the frames that I want to extend. So I'm going to extend everything apart from, this is important, apart from video 1, which I want to end at frame 600, and then right click and just insert a frame. And you'll see by default the content just stays on the stage for that bit longer, so anything grey is saying that there's content in that frame. So here we just have the static TV playing and a blank bit of timeline for the video 2 layer. Now the buttons here, I'll just show you quickly. I've just made those by inserting a new symbol and then selecting button from the drop down. And if we just review those, you can see here I've called them channel 2 and channel 1. They're stored in the library. And if we have a look at that, this is the button editor, this is the button timeline. We've got an overstate of red, overstate of green, a downstate of pink, and then your hit state. And channel 2, double click. We've got overstate of light blue, down, and hit. Okay, so they're just standard buttons without any action script attached. So what I'm going to do now is just go ahead to the video 2 movie clip. So I'm just going to scroll back to where I'm going to put it in on the main timeline first. Double click on the video 2 timeline. I've got a playback component, so an FLV player already in the library, so that's a symbol that I can reuse. Just drag that onto the stage. I can then go into the properties inspector, so with that player highlighted, I can then remember from movie clips put an instance name in, so this is going to be video player 2, and then I can decide what content's going to come in here. So in the properties inspector underneath component parameters there you'll see content path. Just click the little pencil and we're going to navigate to our second video, which is the MTV FLV, and click OK. So everything else for this video is the same as before, so auto play, auto rewind, no skin, it's just a video coming in and playing. Okay, so we just need to give it roughly, in this case, you do it more accurately obviously for yourself, but I'm just going to do it roughly, the correct amount of frames to play. So I'm going to allow roughly 600. Insert a keyframe there, and that should do. Okay, so going back out of the video, the movie clip editor, which is here, you can see on the top left, back into the main timeline. Click on that keyframe on the video 2 layer, so this is where my movie clip's going to come in. With that selected, go back to the library and just drag out video 2 movie clip and put it in the correct place. So I'm just going to lock all the above layers so that I can just grab that. Move it down until Okay, so we've got our video and that's just going to play in for the second part. So just looking at here, you see where I have the video 1 timeline. My content runs until frame 603. You can see the frame numbers at the bottom here. And then it switches over to 604. Okay, so I've got a clear sort of separation of the timeline. Okay, and I just need to program my buttons to find that. Now, when you're programming buttons and things, it's far more easy to remember a name than it is a frame number. So when I come to program the buttons, which we'll do in a minute, I can't really remember 604 very easily, but I can remember video 2. So we can help ourselves in this respect by giving this frame where the video starts a little label. So I'm just going to highlight that keyframe there, and you'll see in my properties inspector that frame has space for a label. So I'm going to call it vid2. Okay, and you'll see a little red flag appears and a name. I'm going to do likewise for video 1, so frame here, easier to do that than remember frame 2, so vid 1. Okay, so we've got some labels, and now we can just program the buttons to look for these labels. Okay, so with this button selected here, sorry, just have to uncheck it. Here, I can go to Windows, Actions, and open my Actions panel. I always open mine and then just, once it's open like this, I just lock it into the top here. And then you just double click the tab to open it when you need it. It's a lot easier. So with button 1 selected here, double click Actions, make sure your code snippet is on, go into Global Functions, Timeline Control, double click Go To, and you'll see Go To and Play we want to select, and then it says frame number. We've got an option just to choose frame label instead, and from the drop down we're going to call vid1. Okay, tuck that away, and then for button 2 we've got selected, double click to open our actions, Go To and Play, same thing, frame number, we're going to choose frame label instead, and Go To and Play vid2. Okay, so we just save that and see how that works just by doing Command and Enter. Okay. And there we go. So we can jump back. And all that's happening with that button is that when we click it, the playhead is just jumping around the timeline and just looking for those labels to start and play. Okay, so it's starting from here. Now, if you wanted to play it out all together, you'd find that once you got to the end of part 2, it would just loop and go back to the beginning. That's fine, we've got a stop on there. But if you didn't want it to do that, if you wanted it to play and then stop at the end of the actual timeline, you could put in another keyframe here and then do what you did with the first one. So you can either say stop or you can say go to and stop at any other point in the timeline. Okay, so in this case we're just going to keep it simple and push stop. And that's it. So explore that. The ideas can be applied to most things. They don't need to be old TVs. It can be any interface. The main thing is that you're using a button and some flags and a bit of ActionScript to navigate around the timeline and pipe some video or other material in as you need it.